Welcome to Composer Basics Part 2, where we'll take you through the first couple of steps that we recommend that you do at the start of every Composer project. So I have imported this file using the settings and options described in Composer Basics Part 1. Now this is our raw data and I've not touched it in any way. So the first thing that I always do is create a new view. Now this gives me a snapshot of the model in its raw state with all the components in their original position. So if I accidentally change anything and I don't like it, then I can always come back into this view and restore any details like position or colour, for instance. Now for some document properties. In the viewport settings, we can turn off the annoying logo shadow by simply deleting the texture path. If needed, I could alter the vertical direction of my project, for instance if this model had come in lying on its side, but it hasn't, so I don't need to change anything here. Then it's to the paper space options. Now we always recommend using a widescreen aspect resolution for our projects, such as 16 by 9. Typically we would use 267 by 167. As this works well for most online applications and it fits very well onto A4 for any paper-based applications as well. Okay, so let's prep this model or this first view and I'm going to go through my typical setup. In the render tab, my preferred view mode is flat technical and the outline style is going to be to smart as discussed in Composer Basics Part 1. Now my model is currently coloured as a finished article, but I am creating an instruction manual and what I want to be able to do is clearly identify the components of interest away from the rest of the assembly. And this is not going to be easy if some things are red, some things are blue and some things are grey. And besides, this product could come in different colourways, so it doesn't make sense to have the default ones on screen. This is even more so if this could be a black and white printed manual. So I select all the components and I'll give them a neutral colour. Typically a light grey, or even if white, if I was going to do a black and white document maybe. Now I can see a couple of the more organically shaped parts could do with a bit more definition, so I'm going to select them individually and I'm going to tweak that minimum angle setting so we can get a few more edges defined. Now this is a case of just personal taste and what looks right for you on the model. Okay, let's turn on some perspective. I always think it looks better with a bit of perspective. I'm going to zoom to fit. Now that's double clicking your left hand mouse button in case you didn't know that shortcut. And then I'm going to save a new view. Finally, I'm going to save a camera view so I can get my model back into that exact same orientation just in case I happen to move it around whilst readjusting a different view. Now this is my big tip or work method. Generally you want to build assembly instructions and you might be tempted to do the obvious, and that is hide all the components apart from the first couple and create an assembly step view. Show some more components and then create another assembly step view, effectively building the product up from the ground up. Now this will work for some small assemblies, but it'll become very time consuming for anything complicated, as you will have to trawl through the assembly tree whilst trying to find out which components are going to be required, and you're going to just need to do that on file names alone. This might be possible with descriptive names, but it's not going to be much use here if you've got just part numbers. So instead we recommend the deconstruction method. Now you start with the finished assembly and then you pull it apart whilst creating views at the same time. This is a lot easier to do as you're only hiding components you no longer need, and everything that you should have on that stage of the build is already on screen. Now it doesn't matter what order you create these views in Composer, it's what you do with them that counts. So remember to rename those views to make your life easy. So that is the deconstruction method. Now let's create a few proper steps around how to assemble / deconstruct this leg coupling. The first thing I'm going to do is zoom in, a quick double click on a part of interest to do that, and I will save a new view. And as I'm happy with the orientation of this view, I'm also going to save a camera view. Now I want to highlight the components of interest, these two screws. So with them selected, I will change their colour. Now this colour should have been decided before we even start this project. So it's going to be something that would match in with your company colour scheme. Now I know there is another screw on the opposite side, so I rotate the view around and I pull out that screw and I change the colour of that to match. And now we can see why I saved my camera view, so I can quickly get back to that same desired orientation. Although in this case I might just want to centre it a little bit more, and of course update both the actual view and that new camera view. Now it would be nice to show exactly where these fixings go, so I select all 3 bolts and then I'm going to add some associated paths from neutral position. Now these default lines look a bit, well, naff, so let's change them. Now I don't need to go around selecting them with my mouse. The quickest way is into the collaboration tab and just select paths. We'll change a few settings and then we'll untick the stay on top and reduce the line width, and that result is much better. Okay, update those views and on to the next. Now I always start by creating a new view. This typically stops me from accidentally updating the previous view by mistake. The first thing you do is hide the blue components and their guidelines, deconstructing, remember, and now we can lift out this knee interface, and as it happens we have left behind some of the parts that we needed to be with it. Now there's an easy way to sort this, and that is by using the copy transformation tool. We pick the missing items and then select the move component, and it will apply the same movement to these parts as well. Okay, sticking with this same design theme, I'm going to change these components to blue and update our view. The rest of this model is now deconstructed in exactly that same way. Create a view, hide previous moved items, move new ones, change their colour, update the view until all of the steps are done. Now I mentioned accidentally updating the wrong view in the past, but there is something you can do to prevent that happening, and that is when you have finished a view you can lock them out, and this will then require unlocking before you can update them in the future. Now a little bit of housekeeping. When you've created all of your views, and I would recommend only then, I would rename them to suit your manual. So in this case NC01, 02, 03, etc. Now I'm going to create these or name these in the correct order rather than the way I was unconstructing them previously. Another tool that you can use if you have lots of views is to group your views into collections. So think about a chapter of your installation or build manual, and don't forget to rename that as well. Finally, before we export all of our views, it makes sense to test it first. So as we suggested in our earlier presentation, we would recommend saving as vector graphics using the technical illustration workshop. Use the preview tool to have a look at your output, and this looks very good to me, but I might want to make the grey slightly lighter, but that's all. So don't be afraid to play with these settings. As we showed you earlier, they can really affect the output and the style of your manuals. Now don't forget, when you're happy you can export all of these views in one go using the multiple views options, and then all you have to do is just to assemble your manual in your preferred desktop publisher. Now I hope you found this useful. Remember to check out the website for more videos, and we offer training courses on Composer as well as all of the other SOLIDWORKS products. Goodbye for now.